Welcome to the 10-Minute Treasurer. My name is Jeff Pospisil, and in this video, I'm going to look at who gets a 1099 NEC. So this is the normal 1099 that people are talking about. The NEC stands for non-employee compensation. This used to be built into the 1099 miscellaneous, that MISC one, but now it's its own separate form for whatever reason. So the general rule for who gets a 1099, it's those individuals not employed by the church that you paid 600 plus dollars for services. And this might sound simple, but it really can get complicated. Whenever you're dealing with the IRS, it can get complicated. So I'm going to break this down section by section. And the first one is individuals. So a lot of times when you contract for services, you're dealing with a business. Well, how are they organized? Is it a sole proprietorship? Is it a corporation? Is it an LLC? Is it a partnership? You may not be clear. Sometimes you can look this up on the Secretary of State website, and I'll go ahead and do a link to that. Sometimes you can find that information, but if you're not clear, one of the things you should do is have them fill out a W-9. And especially if you're not clear and you kind of suspect that they might be a sole proprietorship or something like that, don't pay them until you get that W-9 back from them, because otherwise they're not going to get you the W-9. So if they're an individual sole proprietor or a single member LLC, if they check that one, they get a 1099 miscellaneous. For me, I sometimes have people that will be receiving gift annuities. Well, eventually they pass, so we still do cut one more check to the estate. So I'm paying the individual as well as the estate, and they get a 1099 as well. Those partnerships are multiple individuals is how the IRS looks at them, so they get a 1099. And then if they're a limited liability company and they're organized as a partnership, or they're a single member LLC, those people get a 1099. So those are the individuals that get a 1099 if the business is organized in that way. The second one we'll look at is not employed by the church. And this really goes into how you classify people between being an employee or an independent contractor. And I think the big difference for me in deciding is how much control do you have over this person? And then also, do they do this for other people? Do they have multiple gigs? Or are you their only client? So if you're their only client and you have a lot of control over them, chances are they're an employee and not an independent contractor. So uh, common questions are, what about pastors? And for IRS purposes, pastors are almost always considered employees, so they get a W-2 and not a 1099. IRS recently did guidance around musicians, and they are almost always employees. I mean, because you're picking out the music for them, and chances are this is their only gig that they're playing. So I would guess that they're an employee. There may be some rare exceptions where you have an organist that is playing for 2 or 3 different churches, and you have to fit into the organist schedule. So maybe that's the case. Uh, a lot of our churches have added a lot of AV type of people around, and maybe we're paying them a stipend. So again, is this their only gig? Are we giving them the direction? Do they bring any of their own materials or expertise to this? Or are we training them in to do it? So that might be a question. So chances are these people are probably employees too. And custodial staff is sometimes that's one too. Again, is this their only gig? So that could be a big one as well. The third one is that you actually paid them 600 or more dollars for the service for the year. And so, and I do want to add that for the service piece, because let's just say, for example, you have a piano person in town and you buy a piano from them. Well, that doesn't go towards the 1099, but if you also pay that person over $600 or 600 or more dollars to tune your pianos, then that part would be the part that you'd report on the 1099. So, and it doesn't matter if you pay cash, check, debit, credit. If they are receiving money from you, the money they receive during that calendar year needs to be reported on a 1099. The last part we'll look at is the services. And for me, I actually thought this was trickier than the other parts. Obviously, you don't issue a 1099 when somebody buys a good, but we have some of these questionable transactions that, at least for me, I needed to think through them. So I put together a table. And the first one is you don't report accountable reimbursements. So, for example, if you have a volunteer that turns in mileage or turns in gas or lodging receipts, those are not reported. Also, if you have a consultant, you might pay them a fee, but then if they turn in receipts to be reimbursed for their travel, those would not go on the 1099. If they don't account for the travel, but they do charge you for it, maybe they charge you, $1,000 for their travel, but never give you any receipts, then I would report that non-accountable reimbursement along with their fee on their 1099. The next one is incidental services. And so these are services where you basically bought a good and then the service is incidental to it. So it's not the most important part. An example of this is, let's just say you bought a new furnace. You really bought the furnace, but you're also going to pay for labor to install it. But the most important part of that transaction is you're buying the furnace. And this is the opposite of, for me, I get my furnace annually looked at, so and sometimes they'll find something and they'll need to get a parts. But the service I really want, or the thing I'm buying, is I want to do that annual checkup on my furnace, and the parts are really incidental to that. Then, so that one I would include on a 1099. Another one, we just get questions about this. A number of churches give out scholarships. Scholarships are not reported on a 1099, and then also benevolences. So a lot of times we'll help a family in need, or we'll help. Yeah, mostly it's a family in need or something like that. Those are not reported on a 1099 either. All right, I hope that was helpful to you. If you did, I encourage you to share this with somebody. Again, subscribe, like, all that good stuff. That would be good. And you could always find more of our information at www.dakotasumc.org. God bless you. Until next time.